Welcome back to Jaya Monolith. Over our last 4 sessions, we have successfully mapped the basic terrain of your existence, Citta, Cetasika, and Rupa. You now understand how mind and matter rapidly interact to create the constant noise of life. But is there a way out? Today, we address the final pillar, the ultimate destination, Nibbana. Let's dive into the explainer to discover the ultimate exit strategy.
All right, let's dive right into this explainer. And hey, huge congratulations on officially completing Phase 1 of the Jaya Monolith Masterclass. Over our past sessions, we've basically mapped out the entire foundational terrain of your existence. You've gone from seeing a completely solid, permanent world to actually understanding the fluid, rapid interaction of mind and matter. You're no longer just a casual passenger here. You're well on your way to becoming the master of your own internal architecture. Now, if you are just joining us, you might definitely want to catch up on those foundational concepts first. Because today, we're looking at the absolute ultimate destination. We're looking at the exit strategy.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the noise of conditioned reality, introduce the 4th pillar, talk about achieving perfect mental homeostasis, and then finally, we'll complete our reality map. So think about this for a second. What if the peace you're looking for isn't a physical place, but an exit strategy? A lot of times when we hear ancient terms like Nibbana, we automatically frame them as some sort of afterlife concept, right? Like some distant heavenly realm that you only get to reach after you die. But the source material completely shatters that assumption. What we are talking about today is a tangible, psychological reality of ultimate peace that is totally available to you in this very life. It's not a change of location. Actually, it's a complete change of state.
Okay, let's get into part 1, the noise of conditioned reality.
So let's revisit the basic building blocks of your everyday experience. First, we have Citta, the knowing consciousness itself. Then we have Cetasika, those really intricate mental factors that essentially color your mind with emotion and intention. And finally, Rupa, the physical energy of matter. Now, these 3 pillars make up what's known as conditioned reality. That basically means they only exist because of causes. They're like a fire that literally only burns as long as you keep feeding it fuel. And because they constantly require that fuel, they are hyperactive. They rapidly arise, they interact for a microscopic fraction of a second, and then they perish. Over and over and over again, literally in the blink of an eye. Now, check out the stark contrast here. On the conditioned reality side, you've got this system that constantly requires fuel. It's flickering, and honestly, it is loud and highly unstable. This nonstop arising and perishing of your thoughts, your emotions, your physical sensations, that's what we experience as the everyday noise of life. And yeah, it's absolutely exhausting. But then, look at the unconditioned reality. It requires 0 fuel. It is perfectly still. It is absolute silence. If the conditioned world is a raging, burning fire, the unconditioned world is the complete and total cessation of that fire. Which brings us nicely to part 2, the 4th pillar of reality.
Nibbana is defined by the term asankara. This translates directly to the unconditioned. So completely unlike our first 3 pillars, this 4th ultimate reality does not rely on any causes or conditions. It doesn't need a single drop of fuel, it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it definitely doesn't perish. It simply is. Now, a really common pitfall here is to assume this just means a void of empty nothingness. But it isn't nothingness at all. It's actually the ultimate stillness that remains when all that restless, vibrating noise of the conditioned world is finally brought to a halt. There's a brilliant analogy from the source material that I just love. It says, think of your mind as a crowded, noisy room. Seriously, think about how much of your life, how much of your daily bandwidth is spent just trying to manage that one room. You're constantly trying to quiet down the noisy citta. You're endlessly rearranging the heavy Rupa furniture, just trying to get comfortable. You're desperately trying to paint the walls different colors with your Cetasika to, change the mood. It's basically a never-ending, totally exhausting interior design project.
But Nibbana is the realization of the absolute silence that exists entirely outside of that room. It's the exit strategy. It's stepping out of the noisy room entirely. This is exactly why it's a psychological state of total liberation that you can experience right here, right now. You don't have to wait for the room to magically disappear. You just have to realize the profound silence that has always been sitting right there, just beyond its walls.
The sources describe this state as akalika, which means timeless and all-pervading. It's not locked away in some mysterious, hidden dimension. Honestly, the only reason we aren't experiencing it 24/7 is because our minds are just so completely tangled up in the illusions of sammutisaka, or conventional truth. We're just so incredibly distracted by the flickering noise of our daily lives that we completely overlook the silent backdrop behind it all.
All right, let's move on to part 3, achieving perfect mental homeostasis. This is absolutely crucial to understand. Nibbana functions as the ultimate ground state of reality. If we want to put this into modern psychological terms, we can think of it as a state of perfect mental homeostasis. Now, homeostasis is when a system is perfectly balanced and stable, right? When you reach this unconditioned ground state, your internal system becomes completely non-reactive to external stress. The chaotic noise of the world outside can scream literally all at once, but your internal state remains absolutely untouched. You are perfectly anchored in pure, unshakable peace. And this perfect homeostasis is achieved through something called nirodha, meaning the cessation of the cycle of suffering. It's the final extinguishing of the fires of greed, anger, and delusion. Because look, as long as we keep identifying with those first 3 pillars, our ever-changing thoughts, our constantly aging bodies, any happiness we manage to find is inherently unstable. Because those pillars are always perishing, our happiness is just going to perish right along with them. Nirodha is stepping off that wildly unstable roller coaster completely. It is the one and only true, lasting exit strategy.
So how exactly do we experience this ground state? Well, for starters, it definitely cannot be seen with your physical eyes. You're never going to spot it under a microscope. It is an ultimate reality that is known directly by the mind, and it is developed exclusively through wisdom. When you actually train your mind to deeply observe the rapid, constant perishing of every single thought and every single atom, a really profound shift happens. Your mind basically gets tired of all the instability, and naturally, effortlessly, it begins to incline toward the only thing in the universe that doesn't perish, the absolute stability and absolute safety of Nibbana.
And that brings us to part 4, completing our reality map.
This neatly illustrates exactly what we've accomplished together so far. We've systematically deconstructed the entire universe down into its 4 ultimate components. You've got chitta, the awareness that knows; chitisika, the qualities that color your experience; rupa, the energy that forms matter. Those 3 are your conditioned reality. And finally, you have nibbana, the peace that liberates, the unconditioned. You now fundamentally understand the basic code of the matrix, and, far more importantly, you know exactly what the exit strategy is.
So, with that final pillar firmly in place, phase 1 of the masterclass is officially complete. Take a second to just let that sink in. The broad architectural map of your existence has been drawn, but our journey into understanding reality, it's far from over. Now that we know what the massive pieces of the puzzle actually are, we're going to pivot. Get ready because we are preparing for phase 2, the mechanics of consciousness.
In phase 2, we are seriously shifting gears. We're moving from this big, broad conceptual map down to microscopic, mathematical precision. We are literally going to mathematically decode consciousness itself. We'll be exploring exactly 89 specific variations of chitta. We're going to see with absolute surgical precision exactly how the mind adapts to all sorts of different environments, mapping states all the way from the absolute lowest steps of mental misery right up to the highest, most expansive peaks of divine awareness. It's going to be wild.
So the foundation is well and truly laid. Your mental architecture is clear. You understand the noise, and you know the profound silence of the exit strategy. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Now that you have the complete map and you know exactly where the exit is, are you ready to look at the math and decode the 89 variations of your own consciousness? I literally cannot wait to dive into those microscopic details with you next time. See you then.
We have now successfully deconstructed the universe into its 4 ultimate components. You have the map, and you know the way out of the noise. This concludes phase 1 of the Jaya Monolith Masterclass. But our journey is far from over. In our next episode, we begin phase 2, the mechanics of consciousness, where we will mathematically decode the 89 types of consciousness. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Until next time, find your stillness,